Now, 1 in 5 of all newly built properties in Ireland are now in the control of NAMA. So what have NAMA's plan to offer mortgages with protection against price falls later this year in a bid to inject some life into the property market in Ireland?
Meanwhile, a new survey of brokers has found that up to 8 in 10 applications for a mortgage are being turned down. To discuss these and other property-related issues, we're joined by Karl Deeter of the Irish Mortgage Brokers and Angela Keegan of MyHome.ie. First of all, let's just talk about these NAMA mortgages. Just break it down for us. What do they mean?
It's basically a mortgage where if the price continues to drop and you end up in negative equity after a certain number of years, they write that bit off up to 20% of the property price. So if you buy a house for 200,000, you still put down a 10% deposit, and then there's 40,000, which is kind of the buffer. So if your property value fell from 200,000 to 160,000, you'd get a write-off down to that amount. The actual mechanism of it isn't public yet. We don't know precisely how it will work. There's still a lot to come forward. What we do know is that there'll be about 750 units that will be sold on this basis. Whether they're apartments or houses is still up in the air, but it will be funded through the 2 main pillar banks, and it will have that kind of insurance policy built into it.
So we still don't know how long these mortgages will be on offer for. It certainly won't be going on for a number of years. It's going to be a short-term thing, I would imagine.
Well, we know that NAMA have approximately 5,000 properties on their books. So the thinking would be that the pilot scheme, as Karl had said, will start with 750, and the idea, as far as we're aware, is that the scheme would run through until the 500 properties have actually been sold off the NAMA books.
Karl, do you think this is a good idea?
I think that it is just an idea that NAMA came up with to try and create transactions for themselves. I don't think it's big enough to change the property market. My only concern is that it might attract people whose sole criteria is access to finance and who want that insurance policy. They might end up looking for those properties specifically because of this kind of special offer that exists.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to change the market. I don't think it's going to, suddenly give us an uplift or even push prices down. It's just a company that has too much property on its hands, trying to shift some of its stock. Yeah. It's no different than a shop with lots of clothes on there, trying to knock down prices and sell something on.
Angela, NAMA is there to bail out the banks, and now it's doing the bank's business, almost.
Yes, it's. I suppose it's an interesting dynamic. But what are NAMA to do? Are they to do nothing? And I think what was interesting this week, we had Minister Penrose come out, raising a concern over the NAMA scheme. He's viewing it as another incentive into the property market, and it's incentives that got us into this predicament as such in the first place. I actually don't agree with him. I think, going back to what Karl had said, I think the Minister is saying that it could potentially inflate the property market. That's working on the assumption that anyone who buys one of those properties is buying it for the sole reason that they can access finance. And it doesn't take into consideration that people choose the type of property that they want and choose the area in which they want to live. And if you look, the pilot scheme is for 750 properties. We know from NAMA that most of their properties are apartments. Even in this market, which is, the volume of transactions is quite low, we'll still see approximately 12,000 mortgages being issued this year. So in the first tranche, 750 over 12,000. For me, it doesn't stack up. And for me, I would welcome it within the market. I think what's missing in the market is confidence and access to finance. And I think if it gives, particularly first-time buyers who are looking for somewhere to live, if it gives them the confidence to make that step, for me, that's good, and don't want to say kick-starting the market, but adding much-needed transactions to what's a stagnant market.
Apartments have fallen quite a bit in price.
They have, yes. Apartments would have taken an absolute hammering, and I know the CSO figures came out last Tuesday saying that apartments in 1 month alone in Dublin in the month of August had fallen by 6%. Our own figures would show, and the My Home report is out today, it would show that apartment certainly figures are dropping at a faster rate than traditional homes. And I think it's absolutely because affordability is back to mid-1990 levels. I think for the first time we're seeing the average price of all house types, with the exception of 4-bed detached, is less than 200k. And that's in or around 2.5 times the salary of the average working couple. So the people getting onto the property ladder, as we used to say. People no longer need to take the apartment step. People can move straight into the 3-bed semi, which is absolutely the house type of choice. And I'm sure, Karl, you see it from a mortgage perspective.
We haven't really done any mortgages at all for apartments. Anybody who's buying at the moment, those who can get finance, are opting for 3-bed semis, housing stock, as opposed to apartments.
What about the survey which is showing that up to 8 out of 10 applicants for a mortgage are getting turned down? What's the main reason?
Well, the banks have any number of reasons for the refusals. I think it's important to bear in mind, you've got the bank statistics that will say that's absolutely not the case. Then you have the broker statistics who are representing clients who say that is the case. If you go to the bank and you look for 200,000 and they say, well, we're not going to do that, but we'll only do 100,000, in their mind, that counts as an approval. They've offered a loan, but they've sanctioned it for an amount that the person can't use. It's like a person who wears size 12 jeans being told, here's a pair of size 8. You might be able to use them someday, but it's not what you need in the here and now. So that's what the banks are saying. But they're saying, oh, listen, we gave out a pair of jeans. What the broker survey from the Professional Insurance Brokers Association is saying is that we're looking for finance and people are either being knocked back entirely, which happens anyway, or they're not getting the amount that they require because of heavily stringent lending, which is down 95% from peak now. We're only going to be looking at in the region of $2 billion in lending in the entire country for this year, about 10 or 11,000 transactions in total. It's very, very repressed. It probably can't stay at that amount without actually being a negative factor in the economy.
Have AIB introduced something in the last couple of days, or it's been mooted at least?
Yeah, the end of last week, they've changed basically the way that they underwrite loans. There's different ways. Sometimes it used to be a multiple of your salary. Then it changed that they would look at your disposable income and take a percentage of that. AIB actually look at the loan that you're looking to do. They stress test it to make it bigger, and then they say that you have to have a certain minimum amount left over to live on. What they've done is they've looked at what people actually are living on, and they've reduced that down. So what it does is it gives the person a little bit of margin to perhaps borrow more under their criteria, if that's the case, which is still very conservative, but it should loosen things up a little bit. Well,
with a stagnant market with home buyers, maybe it's opened the door for rental.
Yes, absolutely, and we have a campaign at the moment, which it's like we're seeing so many people choosing renting as a lifestyle option, and where people, you know, had got to a certain stage and they would rent, for instance, through college, through the first years of the new job, and then felt they had to buy. Most definitely the trends that we're seeing is that people are renting for longer and choosing rental as a lifestyle choice. I think we're a long way from the European model, where you have much lower percentages of home ownership. But my own view would be, in a generation, we'll probably be catching up, because more and more people are choosing to rent in the house type of their choice, in the location of their choice, without having the worries of, you know, are mortgage interest rates going to go up? Is the market going to collapse, etc. So, yes, it certainly is a trend for the future.
Well, thank you very much for coming in to talk to us again today. It's always good to see you. And I look forward to talking to you again in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much. Coming up after the break, haggling. Is it the best way to get a bargain?